Three, two, one. What's going on, everyone? You're watching Ash on Comics. My name is Ash, and I think I might be done with Dawn of X. So this is X-Force number 3. It's got an unattractive picture of Jean Grey on the cover. It's all pink, just standing there, dress flowing up in the wind. I guess it's supposed to be alluring, but it's not because the art is not good. And just look at this terrible inking on the cover. Inking is a lost art, and I think it's happened when Marvel decided to cut corners so bad they just stopped paying for inkers and just had raw pencils. And then that was really bad. So then they got inkers back, but then they stopped paying penciling rates so bad that like now most pencilers want to ink themselves so they can get the penciling and the inking rates. Essentially killing inking. It's basically Marvel doing the same thing, not having to pay for inking. Just lower the cost of penciling and inking to just the previous cost of penciling alone. And now you still get inking, but they don't pay the same. You know, it's just... But look at this. This is just terrible. Inking is not about just drawing ink over pencil lines. This is so awful. This covers should be beautiful. They should be evocative of what's going on in the book, but they should also be pretty to look at. And this is just this is. Here's the thing: the art in this book might be one of the best of all the Dawn of X books, and why are you not using just the interior artist? Why are you paying Dustin Weaver, whoever, to... anyways, I digress. So here we go. Nice. Go into the book, and we get... Then, we as humans recognize our limitations, and then invent remedies. Telescopes and microscopes compensate for the weakness of the eyes. Hammers and saws defy the softness of hands. Boots and skis allow feet to explore rocks and snow and water. Drugs shield and purify the body. And you, dear Domino, look at this disturbing imagery. They're just like peeling away her skin. Ugh. And you can see her. This is like kind of a horrifying front page or first page here. You see the terror in her eye. You know, screaming in pain. This does a lot to capture the horrificness of the situation. And so bravo to the artist. You're a walking skeleton key. So then we see the Secret Society guys from the last James Bond movie. It's like right out of there. Like it's even got Dave Bautista's character right up there. So they've got Domino, and they're skinning her so that they can put her skin on these things that they're growing. Apparently, I guess when you grow black people, you grow them with cornrows. so stupid. Whatever. It's like, wow. Come on. So he says, you are the skeleton key that will help us pick the lock of evolution. So, okay. Pain don't hurt. Mutants around the world are flocking to the island nation of Kuroko. Blah, blah, blah. You've read this a million times because they keep repeating it. And then they tell you the exposition, using skin grafts from Domino's body, blah, blah, blah. So in case you didn't read issue 2, here's issue 3 to tell you all the things that we already learned in issue 2. We get a full white page, 2 more pages of white pages for the credits because filler, right? It's remember in the 80s when McDonald's, you may not be old enough to remember, but in the 80s McDonald's got a big, like, you know, they got a lot of flack for having like filler in their burgers. And then there went this whole thing in the fast food industry where like all the different fast food places like kept advertising like 100% beef, no filler. Like they had to, because there's perception had been made now that all the fast food places used all this filler and crap, and it wasn't, you know, just 100% pure beef. And So they just had to wage this, marketing campaign to try to convince people like, no, you should buy our burgers. We're putting real stuff in it now, and then fast forward to today, and, fast food burgers are full of filler and artificial flavoring and all this stuff. And no one cares anymore. Like, it's just, I digress. So we get now outside soul. The Krakoan commandment, murder no man. I'm guessing it don't apply to the lab-built hamburgers like these. Just like, geez, look at the carnage of Wolverine. Just, oh, God. That law is exactly why Krakoa will never work. Professor X has always been too kind, too generous, too optimistic about the protozoic slime that is humanity. And now, look at what they've done. You're smart, kid, but that don't mean you know everything. You're telling me this doesn't make you angry? They're using Domino as a platform for bioprinting. She's been butchered. Oh, I'm pissed as hell. Wolverine smashes the cryo tube or whatever she's in. But trust me, the professor knows exactly what humans are capable of. The same as mutants. And Domino comes back, gasp. The very best and the very worst. Oh, shit. And so something's looming over them. And this is pretty horrifying looking at Domino here. It's like, God, the pain she must be going through. And this is the best thing about this book, and it's kind of sad for me that this is the case, but the best thing about this book is that Wolverine seems to be Wolverine for the most part. He's not walking around like a pod person, and he's not walking around like this stupid, like racist bigotry that is being implemented and pushed in these books of mutant superiority. It's completely villainous. It's completely off-putting. It's completely a terrible message. And we're supposed to be in a world, the progressives want to run, and they certainly run the mainstream comics industry, and they want to preach all this morality and all this stuff, but then they write books that's all about promoting hate and bigotry. It drives me nuts. But Wolverine here is like, look, mutants are just as bad as humans. We're not different, really, in that aspect. I mean, we both have the same psychology. We both have the same, moral hang-ups. None is better than the other. And it's like this is the only X-Men that's not a racist bigot is Wolverine. Thank God, because he's always been my favorite. He hasn't been written well in 20-something years. So we skip to the next page, and we get this cool lumbering beast that looks right out of an anime. I don't know if you've ever seen Attack on Titan. That's what the first thing that I saw. I was like, whoa. And the art in this book is really growing on me, and the coloring is really helping. Most of the time, colorists don't. It's just if you a colorist shouldn't really be noticed most of the time, right? It's like a good inker. It's like if they're doing your job, everything should just look good, and you shouldn't be aware. It's kind of like special effects in a movie, right? When you notice the special effects, that means you're kind of doing something wrong. But in this book, I can't help but just really appreciate the coloring. It's probably because it's so non-traditional for normal comics. It has a very almost like colored ink. If you ever colored something with colored ink pens, it sort of has that quality. I'm sure it's all digital coloring, but it just looks really cool and different, and it gives this book its own sort of vibe. And I think this particular art is really enhanced by it. I think if this had a more traditional coloring, I think this art would wouldn't fall flat, but I think it would be exposed as not as impressive as a lot of people are giving it credit for. But I'm happy. It's definitely one of the prettiest books to look at maybe the prettiest book to look at of Dawn of X for sure. So we get this voiceover. I suppose this isn't a very scientific question, Jean, but do you think we'll miss dying? And so we see back in Krakoa, Beast is talking to Jean. If your plan works, if we could bring Charles back, I'm trying to imagine what that means for mutant kind. Because he's not one life. He's all of our lives. Will we become recklessly assured? Shouldn't we have a healthy fear for death? And then Jean, not looking her best. Look at this pretty ugly look here. No, not at all. And here's why. When I was a kid, my family took a few road trips to Niagara Falls, to Arcadia National Park. And when we got tired of driving, we'd stop at country cemeteries. And then we get a nice look at all the pods, which is why I call Xmen pod people, because they are. She explains my parents would lie down in the shade, a big tombstone to have a snack. My sister and I ran. We played a game. Who could find the oldest grave? She says, I've died more times than anyone can keep track of, that's for sure. And maybe that's in part because I've learned from a very early age that death wasn't something to fear. That's made me a better person and hero. You're suggesting that death, or rather the fear of it, rather makes people selfish? I suppose it doesn't encourage generosity or bravery. What I'm saying is, without death, without death, life is less about me and more about us. The long game of mutant kind. That's the dream of Krakoa. And so we see Charles is being reborn. And this is where it gets into weird territory again for me. It's just like, kind of what she says makes sense. Like, okay, yeah, like if you're not constantly worried about your own well-being, that frees up your psyche to be more concerned about others. Part of the problem with that is that's kind of what make people heroes, right? The sacrifice. I don't need a situation where the X-Men now have an excuse of why they can be noble or why they can care about other people. It's like, oh, well, since I'm now immortal, I don't have to be so selfish. So that's kind of what Jean is saying here. It's like, no, it's more impressive when you do have to worry about your life and yet you still are selfless. That's what we should be doing. And I think this book misses that point. It gives you something to think about, but then once you think about it, you go, yeah, now I'm just not impressed by that anymore. Now it's like, oh, now you can care about mutant kind because you're immortal. Like, oh, I guess that's great. What about the rest of us? Kid, can use some help about now. So anyways, they're running away. We go back to Wolverine and Quentin Quire, one of the stupidest mutants ever. And they're running away from one of the Attack on Titan guys. And Domino's like, Logan, don't worry, Dom. We got you. She says, power inhibitor. To which Wolverine kind of recognizes, hey, kid, I'm running as fast as I can. I got a feeling our luck's about to change. And he cuts off the inhibitor. And that's what I guess was dampening everyone's powers, was her inhibitor. So that's pretty cool. I like that it's the luck's about to change line because, her power is luck. It would have been cooler, I think. And maybe that is the case. I don't know. Like, I would have been cooler to see her power actually kick in with something lucky. I hate how Quentin Quire manifests psychic weapons. Been there, done that with Psylocke. Been there, done that with Psylocke 2.0. Now we've got Quentin Quire. Like, it's just, do you have psychic powers? Is this how comic, like, are psychic characters now just Green Lanterns? Like, it's dumb. So he blows him up with a psychic bazooka. Don't even know how that works. Then we go back to the healing gardens, and we see Sage. Any progress? It was torn apart by Wolverine. There's only so much I can... I was doing my best Deckard Cain right there. It's not very good, but if you got the joke, that's hopefully you got a little chuckle. Do everything you can, healer, and more. We have 1,000 questions about the attack. So apparently Wolverine gutted this guy so bad that healer can't even heal him, but yet he looks pretty intact. If he dies, so do the answers. And then a mysterious shadow figure comes up, suffocates him, and he's dead. So what's going on? It's kind of a mystery. That's intriguing. And then we get the fifth assassin, and look at this wall of text. It's like, come on. Look, when Hickman did this in House of X and Powers of X, I bitched about it, but I ended up being sold on it because there was so much information that needed to be passed on to the user. And exposition dumps, it made sense. To do it in the book and the story, I think would have taken away from the book itself. And another thing that I really appreciate, and I didn't think about this right away, is that the way Hickman did it in House of X and Powers of X, you read those, you get the information. Now you have that information and that knowledge. So when you go through and read the story again, presumably if you're going to read it again, you don't need to read these white pages. You know this data. You know, this is knowledge that you've now processed. You have it. So now if this were put in the comic itself, you'd have to read the exposition of the story every single time. This is like a one-time thing, essentially. So, but here, it's a lot of fluff. It's a lot of, I don't need this. So we get, no one questioned the death of the fifth assassin. I can't even read. His condition was serious, and there's only so much that can be done when a body has been stabbed and shredded by adamantium claws. I got a question. Do adamantium claws cut differently than steel claws? I mean, it's like, oh, they were shredded by adamantium claws. No, it doesn't really matter. They could have been plastic claws. They could have been steel, aluminum, tungsten, nickel. It doesn't matter. It cuts. It cuts the body. Okay, I'm being nitpicky, but it just read weird to me. The plan was to strip down his remains, along with the remains of the other four, to the very marrow, in hopes of discovering some biometric identification. These were not people, after all. They were property. Blobbity, 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 autopsies, blobbity, blobbity. Oh, look, they're like a human IED, diabity. It's unclear whether the assassins were outfitted for a biological timer. Nothing actually is told to us. It's like, oh, okay. Everything you read that is you gathered out of the book, hopefully, if you have any reading comprehension. So then we go, where are we? In France, maybe? Oh no, where are we? Ash. Where are we? France? No, we're in Washington Square, Manhattan. See, all you gotta do is reading. Wasn't I saying something about reading comprehension? Now I got egg on my face. So it's not just here. It's all of them. Every gate, crowds gathering, reporters, people wanting to know whether it's true, whether Xavier is dead. So every single gate has a bunch of crowds and reporters around it. Okay. And what would you propose I do? Says Magneto. I was supposed to defend the island. I messed that up good and proper. Won't let it happen again. I don't care. So Magneto goes out to confront the reporters. And he's like, the reporters like, blah, 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 the typical reporters talking over each other, which they're not actually doing. It's just one guy and everyone else standing around. Do the treaties still stand? It's all right. He's about to address him. You see all the cameras and microphones in his face. You don't need to say anything. Comes a voice from behind him, and he's like, huh? Turns around. I can speak for myself. And there's Professor X, old friend. And then, but Professor Xavier, how do we know it's really you? Oh, jeez. Maybe you're a shapeshifter. What if you're an illusion? Okay, I don't care. Then we get another white page about the Cerebro sword. And this is kind of interesting. They talk about what we already saw in the comic, and this is what bothers me. It's like you showed this already. Now we get a rehash, I guess. Shattered remains of Cerebro, which he shaped into a sword. I suggest you keep this close, he said. Xavier took it by the hilt and promised to do as Magneto advised. So it's like, an excerpt from a book. It's like they talk about. Anyways, I don't want to read this all to you. Wraps up with Cerebro was broken, but forged anew and refined like Xavier's dream. Okay, whatever. So there's a Cerebro sword. So Quentin now is doing something to Domino. I am, famously, the best. But even though I can take away your pain, even though I can give you back the use of your arm and leg, I am having trouble telepathically accessing your memories. The pain and narcotics have made a mess of your brain. No shit. I'm living that mess right now, says Domino. I wish I could tell you everything, but I can't. Of course you can't. I feel like I've gone through a blender. Everything's a scramble. Oh, yada yada. Been there, done that, says Wolverine. And they got the dead body of psychic bazooka Titan guy. And then Domino talks about the man with the peacock tattoo. And they're about to go back in and investigate the lab or whatever. And then it blows up. And we go back to the island. And now it's some different time. And some of the X-Men are now in the secret place. It's kind of cool. It's like this little cave that's behind the waterfall. And they're having this meeting. And Wolverine, makes a comment. That's why we're all hiding in this swamp hole with the waterfall roaring outside to hide our voices. To talk about nothing. We denied it ever happened. And denial is what we're here to talk about. So they're talking about, assassination of Professor X. And so basically Professor X says, we must respond in kind. Blobbity blobbity. The left hand turns the page. The right hand makes a fist. That feels right to me. That feels like a force of good. Xavier is back. Already he pursues us, I'm told. To me, my X-Force. It's play off of To Me, my X-Men. I don't think Xavier's ever said that. X-Force was not an Xavier thing, but whatever. It was a Cable thing, but Cable's not anywhere to be found now. No. This isn't the time to go quiet. This is the time to get loud. We'll funnel money into xenophobic gangs, churches, think tanks. We'll build an army of dummy accounts and chat groups online. We'll call them Comicsgate. Sorry, that was me. We'll create every manner of disruption and dissonance. And of course, we'll continue to hunt down mutants for our experiments. Every country has a shadow agency, Weapon X among them. Xavier made certain each and every one was defunded and disbanded. But just as the mutants have come together in Krakoa, the shadows have gathered here. And where shadows gather, there is darkness. For we are one, we are many, we are MAGA. Excuse me, Xeno. Yeah. Why did it have to go here? I'm so sick of the whole mutants good, humans bad. This is a whole completely on the nose analog of just white patriarchy being the problem. Humanity is the analog here for the white patriarchy. Everyone else is, the oppressed minority, which represents mutants. It's just, come on here. We'll funnel money into xenophobic gangs, churches, think tanks. These are all the things that you could just imagine. It's not some evil anti-mutant guy. This is progressive leftist. This is an Antifa member. This is pick and choose your Ocasio-Cortez. We'll build an army of dummy accounts and chat groups online. Now, I'm not saying that they would be saying this. This is how they speak about the white patriarchy. This is how they would speak about Trump supporters. At least how they view them. building an army of dummy accounts, chat groups online. I've been a part of this, you know, for several years with the whole Comicsgate thing. That's what I was accused of, even though I wasn't part of any army of dummy accounts, not a part of any xenophobic things, but that's what I was accused of. And as a white male, I'm constantly accused of being a bigot and a racist and everything, and everyone's oppressed because of me. And I'm sick of reading this in my comics. I'm sick of reading a comic book where the bad guys are humanity, not villains. No, the villains are now the good guys. Magneto, good guy. Apocalypse, good guy. You know, they're all good now. Everyone's fine because they're mutants, so therefore they're perfect and pure, and everything is forgiven. There's no crime. Mutants are not held to the same standards. But humanity, every single one of them hates mutants. They're all bigots. They're all evil. And that's just what Dawn of X is become. And X-Force was the best book. It still probably is the best book. But the best book needs to be better than this. If this is the bar, this isn't even the bar. This is the high as it goes. I don't know how much more I can do this. I've already dropped everything else. I got X-Force and Xmen, and I really want to like them. I love Xmen. But I feel like the rug has been pulled out from under me. And this wasn't a terrible book. You know, if I overlook this progressive rhetoric here that's forced into the comic, if I overlook it and just go, okay, well, whatever, it's just villainy talking, you know, it's okay, but it's just okay. It's just nothing super exciting. And this story, we kind of already got last issue, rescuing Domino. This is all just sort of like rehash, except for this big brute guy that comes stumbling into the wall. You're like, oh shit. And there's no fight scene. It's literally just Quentin making a bazooka and boom, that's it. There's no action. There's no dynamicism. It's a bunch of standing around talking, and I'm so tired about this in modern comics. And if you're gonna go around and stand around talking, be good at dialogue. Be good at characterization. And even then, you still need some action. I'm not reading comics to be bored of it. And I'm not saying that I need action to not be bored. I mean, I love a good drama, like in a film or something, but it has to be good. Comics, however, it's a visual medium. I want the art as much as I want the writing. I want to see cool things happening on the page. And, you know, this is not nearly as bad as New Mutants, which I just did a review of issue number 3. Please check that out. I roasted the shit out of it. I think it's one of my better vids. So tell me if you think the same or if it didn't work for you. That's all I have to say about this book. Tell me what you're thinking about X-Force right now. I think I'm going to do all the vids for issues 3 and be done with doing all these X vids. It's dominating the vids on my channel. It's causing me not to want to even make videos anymore, but I feel like I couldn't just do a couple issues. But now I'm going to cover all issues up to 1 through 3 of every issue, and then I think I'm just going to give an overall, you know, I'll just maybe pick an issue or just give an overall synopsis of what I thought about the whole thing. I don't know. But yeah, so bear with me through issues 3, and then I think I'm done. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.